I have something for you to watch. And as you're watching it, please stay tuned, because as soon as it's over, I have an invitation for you that I think you're going to find important. So stay on, because we've got something significant for you to see. Joseph, the people who are watching us perhaps already have known something of your background. You've been with the Billy Graham Crusades, you've been with TBN, you've been with singing groups across the country, you've been a professional musician. My goodness, you sang at the funeral for Martin Luther King. You've established yourself as an extraordinary person, musically as well as spiritually. And the spiritual side of it, I think, is what the people watching us today might like to hear about. A distinction that we make is between miracles and divine interventions. A miracle is kind of like when you got your vocal cords healed without any scar tissue, as we described earlier. But a divine intervention is the way in which the hand of God starts to move in us. It maybe doesn't have that much of a dramatic snap to it, but it changes life, it changes directions. And many of the people watching us today are wondering, can God make a difference in their life? Can God change something in their life? So I'd like to know how you experienced that change in your life.
Well, it goes back a little bit, connecting up with my years at Eastman. Following those years, I taught at a community college for a while. I had a little top 40 band that I moonlighted with on weekends. And over time, the group decided we'd move to Nashville. Actually, we were moving to California because that's where all the action was. But I stopped off in Nashville to visit with my sister. Just stay there a couple of days, and then we're going to head on out to Nashville. Well, that couple of days turned into 14 years. And during that time, I became a part of a group that toured around the country and did shows. They were called the Vogues. I don't know how many people remember them, but this is a group of guys who had the name from the original Vogues, and my band was their backup band. And the guy who was their arranger was a guy named Alan Moore. Alan was a strong Christian, although in working with us, he was professional. He was just the arranger for the music for the group. I got to know him and got to know his wife Karen over years, and I noticed something about him that was a little bit different, in many ways than us, because we were typical musicians, typical on the road guys. And after a series of events had taken place, and I was no longer doing the backup band thing, I was substitute teaching in town at a high school. And as I left the school that day, heading back home, I got lost in this area of town that I was not that familiar with. But I ran across a street that I was familiar with. It was called Cross Timbers Drive. I love the name of that street because of what happened as a result of that. And that was the street that Alan and his wife Karen lived on. And I found their house late in the afternoon, and I knock on the door. And so about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And Alan comes to the door, and he says, "Oh, Joseph, come on in, what are you doing over here?" And I explained to him that I was trying to get directions back into Nashville from out where they were living. And he said, "Well, come on in." And so I came in the house, and to my surprise, he and his wife were having a Bible study in their bedroom in the middle of the day. I'm a band guy. Okay. This was about as far from my world as anything could have been at that time. And so they kind of ended the Bible study, and obviously I was uncomfortable kind of just being there without it going on. And so they took me to the kitchen, and as I walked through the house, I said, "Alan," I said, "Wow, man," I said, "there's something," this is the first time I'd been in their house. I said, "There's something about your house. It's so peaceful here, And he said, "Oh, it's Jesus." And I said, No, that's not what I mean. I mean, there's something in the atmosphere in your house that is just really, really peaceful. He said, oh, it's Jesus. And I said, no, I grew up in church. I mean, I know about the Jesus stuff. I said, that's not what I'm talking about. It's just something, I can't put my finger on it, but I feel something peaceful here. And he said, it's Jesus. Well, this went on for about 5 times, you know. And he said, come downstairs, I want you to hear something. And he turns on a recording that he had just done as a record producer and arranger. He had just done a recording with a guy named Ken Helser from High Point, North Carolina. And the song was called Feed My Sheep. So he turns it on for me to listen to it, and he goes back upstairs. And so I'm listening to the song, and the guy says, and the song goes, for the first time this morning, I began to realize what the Lord must have felt as he looked into Peter's eyes. He said, Peter, do you love me? Well, Lord, you know I do. And with love beyond what's known to men, Jesus said, Peter, I'm leaving this with you. Oh, feed my sheep, dear Peter. Oh, feed my lambs. Oh, feed my sheep, dear Peter. And please remember who I am. Well, I'm listening to this, and I'm feeling just this sense like my heart's opening up, and I'm hearing this song. And he goes on in the song where Jesus asks Peter a second time, do you love me? And Peter starts to say, well, of course I love you. And a third time. And then Peter says, Lord, I don't know what you're asking. What are you telling me? Of course I love you. And Jesus says, Peter, feed my sheep, feed my lambs, feed my sheep. Herein is love. Not that we love God, but that he loved us. And if God so loved us, we ought to love one another. And we ought to feed his sheep. And suddenly, in the moment of hearing the song, I heard the Lord say to my heart, Joseph, I love you. Mm-hmm. And you're one of my sheep. Mm-hmm. I broke down. I was bawling, crying. Alan comes back downstairs. I'm on the carpet. Tears are flowing down. And he says, you okay? I said, Alan, I don't know what this is, but if this is Jesus, then I need Jesus. I want this Jesus. Mm-hmm. And he led me in a prayer of salvation, sitting on the shag carpet, the ugly shag carpet on the floor. And the peace that came over my life, the release that came over my life that day, changed me forever. I was never the same again after that.
You had touched a divine intervention. A divine intervention had touched you.
Yes.
And something changed within you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's a new reality that you live with.
Yeah, yeah.
And it has made you a different person.
I know that I'm loved, so I can love.
Oh, oh, that's so touching, Joseph.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
That's so good. Well, I want the people who have been listening to this to know that they too can experience a divine intervention. Oh,
absolutely.
It doesn't have to be a huge,
persons.
earth-shattering miracle. Just being touched by the love of God, the love of Jesus.
Yeah.
And it makes all the difference.
All the difference.
All the difference. Gosh.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother. I hope you found what you just saw to be inspirational and be encouragement to you. And I'd like to hear from you. Please write me at Miracles Never Cease, Box 2, Bethany, Oklahoma, 73008.